All right, everybody, here we go. Another one. Warning to all politicians: I'm running for president 2024. This will be, we'll call it part 117. I forget what letter I got up to in 116. But anyhow, the previous one, you'll see on that manila envelope there, some of the things I was talking about that you can double check on with the COVID stuff. And not only has there been a lot of fishy stuff with the COVID, you can go back to I don't know, when things started seeming, there's been little things here and there, even years ago, that seemed like, what the hell's going on, man? We're in a freaking twilight zone. Then it really started on 9/11, all the misinformation and stuff going on then. So a lot of people out there might know, and a lot more probably don't know, that during the Vietnam War, the military-industrial complex and the CIA and everybody was not too happy with the media. And the reporting on the war and stuff, and they say that caused them to lose a lot of support for the war, etc., etc. So they set out, and there's a operational name for it. I'm sure if you listen to Alex Jones or somebody like that, you'll know what it is. Anyhow, for them to get control of the media. And so you have that, and then you look at the first Gulf War. Pretty much all the media was on board with that. They were all embedded. It was like a huge love fest all the way around. Between, there was no, even from the Islamic world, there was no or very little anti-American sentiment. We were greeted as heroes. They showed people cheering us. All those types of things. So it seemed like, and you can remember reporters and people in the government saying, hey, we've gotten that Vietnam stuff behind us, blah, 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 all this type of stuff. Before George Bush Jr. got elected, people would ask him, what about Saddam, this and that, and he said, hey, as long as he abides by the UN stuff and all this, and he's got no plans to attack him, and blah, blah, blah. And then after 9/11, next thing we know, we're heading for Iraq and all that kind of stuff. And during that time, though, a reporter asked George Bush, he said, hey, there's these news stories being put out that have been made by I forget the exact words, if he said the military or the CIA, and they're being distributed, it's been a long day, to all these news agencies. And did he think it was right for the news agencies to run government-made news stories? And he said, well, they don't have to use them, was all he said to it. No one's making them use them. Now, the talking heads, I've said for a long time, that you see, with their big fat salaries and hobnobbing with all the celebrities and athletes and politicians and stuff, and jet setting around the world, and in some cases being treated as celebrities themselves, are not going to give up their big fat salaries and that lifestyle to tell you anything else than what is put in front of them. All those news shows have writers, they have producers, they have all the people behind the scenes, then you have the owners of the stations, etc., etc., etc. So when you get the news through the television, you're getting what they want you to see, either coming from one side or the other. And now there's people saying Fox has been turned and rolled over because Newt Gingrich wasn't allowed to say anything about, was it Soros? They shut him down on that. And then now they seem to, they called Arizona before everybody else and all this stuff. And one the other day, or last week, whatever it was, seemed to get on Giuliani's case about Biden Jr.'s laptop. And they had a falling out there. One of the other things back there at Bush time, though, was you had the Patriot Act, and you had the later on the NDAA that Obama signed, which gave our government sweeping powers over everything. And it took Snowden and others, WikiLeaks and stuff, put a lot of that information out there. And during a lot of things, on the internet and stuff, that they've even set up where they have people in the military and stuff who go online and go, I'm assuming, to all these chat things they have now and all this social media and even YouTube, and get in the comment sections and stuff like that, and put out false information, or they try and combat truthful things and stuff. A lot of it, they got into that because of the terrorists using the internet and stuff. But another thing that came out during that time and everything was the government has always supposed to have been accountable to us, and that if they were caught lying and misleading the public, they paid a price for it. Which is why back in the day, most times they were questioned by reporters about a lot of things. They would say no comment, can't discuss that now, or not ready to talk about that, whatever it was. And now they remove that to where it's lawful for them to mislead the American public. They removed that all back then. So you have to wonder, Trump's going fake news, and we have all seen bits of fake news. We know Ferguson was a bunch of fake news. Recently here, you see George Floyd, a bunch of fake news. Nobody really talks about that anymore. So I want to go over that for a minute here. I want to know, did George Floyd have COVID? Was he tested for COVID? Not being able to breathe happens to be one of the severe symptoms of COVID. Did they check his neck for any broken bones or vertebrae? Right now, I want you, if you believe that cop, they say George Floyd died of asphyxiation, I believe. The state coroner and also the one the family hired said that's what he died from. Right now, take your hand, put it on the back of your neck and push, and see if you can cut off your breathing. Oh my goodness, what? Why not? Well, because there's bones back there, isn't there? Your spinal cord goes right up through the back of your neck. You can't get to your windpipe. So, and with George Floyd, just like Ferguson, we saw the last 8 minutes of the video. Then we got to see like maybe the first 5 minutes of the video, but we didn't get to see the 10 minutes or more or whatever it was in between the first 5 and the last 8. Not until, I can't forget if it was until after the cop was charged and after other things, but then we got to see the middle part after everybody started rioting and all that shit. Then we get to see, you got to wonder, is that them covering their ass? Oh, well, see, okay, yeah, you went off because we showed you this or whatever, but then we eventually did show you the truth So you people, it's not on us, it's on you people. You should have stopped. We showed you some more evidence there, but you didn't pay attention. If you see that middle section of the video with George Floyd, he is screaming like crazy for, I don't know, 10 minutes about how he can't breathe and everything else, and wrestling with the cops. He don't want to get in the car. In fact, he even says he wants to get on the ground. And his girlfriend's yelling at him, he's going to have a heart attack. So I'm pretty sure both the autopsies showed that he had fentanyl and methamphetamine in his system. Now, going on the assumption that that's true, and he starts screaming he can't breathe, isn't it possible he was going into cardiac arrest or something? I'm not a doctor. I'm not even sure if that's the right thing. But isn't it possible that with the stress, that knowing he was being arrested and everything, and I don't know if he injected that shit, just like celebrities used to, die from doing speedballs, mixing coke and heroin together and shooting it, or speed and heroin together and shooting it. Fentanyl is just like opioid. So was he shooting drugs? Did he have too many drugs in his system? Did he swallow a bunch of drugs because he didn't want to get busted for dealing? How much drugs were in his system? Number one. Plus number two, were there any bones broken in his neck or any vertebrae broken in his neck? Did he have COVID? Now, go ahead, keep pushing on the back of your neck. See if you can make yourself not breathe. Well, that cop had his knee on him and everything, but the cop was actually kind of kneeling on the side of him with his knee over his neck. And he was still screaming and yelling and everything. And I'm sorry, when you can't breathe, you can't yell like that. So, I've been put in a chokehold. And usually, it's a pretty safe bet you're going to pass out before you die. Somebody has really got to crush your windpipe to where even after you pass out and they let go, you die from a chokehold and asphyxiate. Now, when it happened to me, I had so much adrenaline pumping through me, and I was so focused on the person in front of me that while I knew there was somebody behind me and trying to pull me back, it was almost like they weren't there. They weren't able to do it, and I didn't realize that their arm was even around my throat until I started to get weak, and then I realized, hey man, I'm being choked. So I came close to passing out there before I even realized I was being choked. And think about it. Do you when you go to choke somebody in a chokehold, do you approach them from the front and put your arms around the back of their neck? No, that's like you're going in for a hug. Are you going to smoochy smooch? No, a chokehold, if you're going to choke somebody and asphyxiate them, you do it from behind, because you have to block off the air in the windpipe. Now, I've lifted weights earlier in my life and everything, and the work I do is strenuous and stuff, so I'm still pretty thick up in the shoulders and in the neck and stuff. And, they try and tell me all the time when I go for my physical, oh, you're pretty close, your BMI and your neck size, we're going to have to sleep test you and all this shit and everything. It's like, some people are just bigger. It doesn't mean they're unhealthy. I sleep just fine. Unless I drink a gallon of Mountain Dew during the day. Then I'll be up a couple times. But, So another curious thing about the George Floyd thing. All right, he's screaming he can't breathe before they ever touch him in any kind of fashion or put him on the ground, other than trying to direct him to get into the car by holding his arms and stuff. So you have him doing that and everything. Then everything happens. And wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. He's buried and in the ground. Now, I think that happened before they charged the cop. I could be wrong. And here's why that's important. If they had charged that cop right away, he could have got a lawyer. And he could have had his experts do an autopsy on the body. Do you understand that? But now, all they got is the state autopsy and the parents' hired autopsy. So you have to wonder if the coroner was told put asphyxiation, or I'm not even sure what the official state one was. That might even say cardiac arrest. I'm not sure. I'm just assuming that that's what it says, since they went right after the cop to charge him. Now, I gotta admit, when I seen that first video, that first 8-minute video, when they didn't show anything else, I was like, oh my God, that guy's just killing him in cold blood. And after I saw everything else, I'm like, wait a minute. He's screaming he can't breathe before they ever touch him. Oh, he's got fentanyl and methamphetamine in his system? He could be having a fucking heart attack. Has nothing to do with the cops. Now listen to this. How many cases have there been where somebody has died from a drug overdose and they have arrested the person who gave them the drugs for murder? So everyone out there's, oh, that cop killed George Floyd, or that cop murdered George Floyd. Did he? Or is George Floyd and the person who gave him the drugs, or that he bought the drugs from, guilty of George Floyd's death? Let's cut all the bullshit out. Let's cut all this crap about racism out. Let's just concentrate on the truth. Can we do that in America anymore? There's even been celebrities where, they died from an overdose. Hey, who gave them the drugs? Guess what? We're charging you. So if they didn't charge the cop until after, and also, if I remember right, didn't just within seconds after he flopped over, is that when the paramedics showed up? I mean, kind of magically right after that? Were they standing off to the side waiting for, and did they try and resuscitate him? I don't remember videos of that, of them trying to resuscitate him. Giving him CPR or, shocking his heart or anything, or giving him, what's that drug they give overdose people? Narconon or something? I don't know if that works with fentanyl and methamphetamine or what that works with. But let's cut all the crap about racism and all this shit, and let's just get to the truth. If he had enough drugs in his system to cause him to go into cardiac arrest or something, isn't he responsible for his death and the person that gave him the drugs? Did they wait to charge the cop until after they buried him, so that they couldn't get a judge to say, hold on a minute, we want to examine the body? So this is why I tell you, it has seemed through all of this stuff, this whole year, and even back before, that there are forces out there manipulating everything that either want us to have a civil war or have a race war, or who are so desperate for political power, they will do all these things on purpose. And that's what I think it is. And I think there's a lot of guilty people on the left. Very crafty, crafty, mischievous? No, what's the word? It's late, it's been a long day. Mischievous, oh hell. You know what I mean. oh shit, he's having a Joe Biden moment. Going around, and you got to wonder if the intelligence or CIA people aren't involved in it, because they're very good at that kind of crap. You have to look at what happened in the Middle East with the Arab Spring, and when Obama and Biden and Hillary were doing their things, trying to overturn governments. They were supplying terrorists. They had Gaddafi killed. And so you got, people laugh when Trump says fake news. I think there's a shitload of fake news out there. I know there's certainly a large false narrative about a lot of stuff out there, taking advantage of people who are uneducated or who just don't give a shit about what truth is. When they look into immigration, when they look into the economics, when they look into the want by a lot of people in this country for cheap labor. It's why they let Mexico stay the way it is, or they keep Mexico the way it is, so that we have cheap labor coming up here. And for all those of you who live in Texas and everything and other places where, your politicians tell you they're so far against cheap labor and stuff, or illegal immigration, I'm telling you right now, when certain corporations and people want cheap labor, like say you're down there in Texas and all the oil field stuff and everything, awful lot of guys driving them trucks down there don't speak a word of English. There's a rubber stamp work visa. Who you because they all gotta have sponsors, right? When they get to the border, who's sponsoring you? Do you have a job lined up? So they come up to the border, they're coming in, hey, I got a work visa. Who you working for? I'm going to work for Acme Trucking, such and such. Oh, okay, you're on the list. Rubber stamp, all these. Who are you going to work for? Acme Trucking. Rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp. I'm just making up Acme Trucking. If there's an Acme out there, I'm sorry, I'm not saying you're hiring illegals. But if there is a, go to Florida. All the Jamaicans and other people working in the ports and everything, they're coming into the country. Who are you going to work for? I'm going to work for ABC Port Services. Okay, rubber stamp, rubber stamp. Now, if you come up and you're not going for one of those companies who has the go-ahead from the governor or the politicians there, and you come up instead of going to work for Acme Trucking to work in the oil fields down there, you come up and you say, I'm here for ABC Trucking, and they look and it's not on the list, so they say, well, did ABC contribute to the governor's campaign? Or did ABC contribute to so-and-so's campaign? I don't know. Well, you're not on the list. They must not have contributed. They must not have lobbied somebody to get you up to work for this company here in the States. Same thing over there in Florida. So you're very naive out there, America, about cheap labor and what goes on. Even politicians who, I'm against this and that and blah, blah, blah. The illegal immigration. They never really take any hard steps against it or do anything to change the situation in Mexico and point out that, hey, these people wouldn't be coming here if Mexico would get his shit together. They just use it to get political votes on one hand and to line their pockets on the other, because if such and such big company in their state says, hey, I need 2,000 cheap labor people, the word gets put out, hey, these work visas, people coming up, we need them up here. We need them up here in the country. Rubber stamp them. And I'm telling you, it goes on. And then that same politician will get his pockets lined by XYZ company or whatever. And then the next time he needs votes, he'll get on there and talk about how he's against illegal immigration and how it's taken American jobs. But there are places in this country where it goes on very secretly. Sometimes not, because it's in plain sight. You can't tell me if Immigration and Border Patrol going by a lot of places there and stuff. Can't say, hey, you know what? There's a bunch of fucking illegals right there working. You can't tell me that they're that blind. All right? Everybody knows it. It goes on. So all you groups out there, oh, we're for economic justice and all this, and you got to take care of these people and this and that. Guess what? And you're against the corporations and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Guess what? The people you say you're against, you're supplying with cheap labor. Do you understand that? Because you're all for the open border. You gotta let these people in. They just want to come and work. Oh, look at that evil corporation over there making all that money. Not paying decent wages. Well, they ain't paying decent wages because of the illegal labor. So I want to throw these things out there about George Floyd and coronavirus and everything. And, fake news and things being like they're in the twilight zone, and how these news agencies, and it was the same thing, with the neocons and stuff like that. You had Fox and Hannity and all these people and stuff and everything. Sticking to a lot of phony shit that was going on then too. So, in the end, they're all on the same team, I'm pretty sure. They're all getting rich. A lot of chaos being put out there, and I think that's part of it too. I've always said, hocus pocus. Here, watch this hand while we do something over here. We keep you preoccupied. We'll throw so much crap out there that you'll never get to the bottom of 9/11. What was that line Joe Pesci had in that JFK movie? It's an enigma wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in this, you'll never figure it out. I think there's a lot of that going on. And I think even with this election, there's a lot of hocus pocus going on right now with tallying the votes. And, I think, hey, you got to even look when they tried to impeach, you had all of a sudden you find out the truth that all these stories about Trump and the Russians, they tried to impeach him. It was all phony bullshit. And where'd they all originate from? People in the intelligence and stuff, putting out stories to the news, What did Bush say? Hey, they don't have to use them. He got no problem with government agencies putting out stories, canned stories to the news. Just give it to the talking head, let them read it while you show the video we made. So anyhow, there's trying to make sense of all this and everything, and there's a couple verses in the Quran. I'm sorry if it offends you Christians, and it shouldn't. It's all from the same God. No matter what you say, no matter what your preacher says. It's another thing within religion. Just like people on the left don't want to hear nothing about opposing views about global warming and all. A lot of Christians are the same. They don't hear nothing about any other religions. You got the same kind of tunnel vision. That there's no way you could be wrong. You know, and you refuse to look at anything else. Why read Buddha? Why read Krishna? Why read the Quran? And, you know, you've got all the answers. Well, no, you don't. Maybe if you read some of these other things, you would see that all religions basically teach the same principles. And it's from the same God. So anyway, in the Quran, it says, those who live at ease will never find the way. And that the best way is the middle path. There are those who go extreme one way and those who go extreme another way, and the best way is to go the middle path, which I also think of as the independent path. I'm going to try and disseminate through as much crap as I can that they throw out there and try and find some truth. And if I don't find the truth, maybe at least find the questions like I'm asking about George Floyd. Hey, what about this? What about that? What about this? That the reporters don't ever ask. Same thing about Biden's, 10 million jobs, clean energy jobs. Really? Let's dig into this before everyone signs up for it. Let's explain this. What are you talking about here? No, just clean energy jobs, 10 million of them. Well, come on, man. Let's get the details here. Don't make a claim you can't substantiate. Anyhow, I'll leave it go on that. I guess they're still counting votes and a lot of fishy stuff going on. It seems amazing to me that Trump can be ahead, 600,000, 500,000 in Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden they got thousands of votes coming in for Biden, and there's none coming in for Trump. Out of all those votes left to count, and he's that far ahead. Anyhow, I think there's a lot of fishy stuff going on. They've already found dead people who voted 2 and 3 times, people who had their ballots hijacked and they went to vote in person and they were told, no, you already voted. So lots of stuff. Just watched a video where a guy said in the post office they were taking ballots that came in and putting a postmark on them of the day before. They were postmarking ballots that they got on the 4th. They were postmarking them for the 3rd. So, lots of stuff. All right, wish you all the best out there. God bless.